This is Inside Urology, Cutting to the Chase, a podcast from the Indiana University School of Medicine Department of Urology. We talk about all things urology with Dr. Clint Cary. Each episode features conversations with physicians, researchers, patients, and we'll share some of the stories shaping the field. So let's cut right to the chase. Welcome into Inside Urology, Cutting to the Chase, episode 5. I'm your host, Annie. I'm here with Dr. Clint Cary, and he's the chair of the department. And we have 2 guests today. Very excited. We haven't had 2 guests before. Also new to the podcast world. We are going to introduce them. They are Dr. Charles Powell and Dr. Martin Kaefer. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we get into the exciting trip to Kenya, can you please give us just a little bit of background on yourselves and what you specialize in?
Sure. My name is C.R. Powell. I've been in the department since 2009, and I specialize in urogynecology, female reconstructive surgery, which also includes male reconstructive surgery. And this also involves fixing fistulas and urethral strictures, which is what we do in Africa.
Okay.
And I'm Martin Kaefer. I've been in the department since '98, and I'm a pediatric urologist. Take care of basically any condition you're born with that affects the genitourinary system.
Awesome. So we're talking today about their trip to Kenya. You were there specifically to teach, train residents and other faculty. Give us just a little bit about the trip and what you were there for.
Maybe even start with the whole Kenya relationship.
Sure, that's a good idea. So I came in the department in 2009. The chair at the time, Dr. Mike Cook, indicated he would be fine with me going to Kenya annually, and that's something I wanted to do. It's one of the things that drew me to this job. And so the AMPATH project, which is what it's called now, started more than 30 years ago by, it was Joe Mamlin, Charlie Kelly, and basically this started as a relationship with Indiana University and the second largest medical school in Kenya, Moi Teaching Referral Hospital. And so it started with the idea we want to treat HIV/AIDS in an area where these medicines weren't available. And so it started with internal medicine. And since then, it has ballooned into this amazing program where multiple universities are involved, multiple countries are involved, not just Indiana University and Moi Teaching Referral Hospital. And so it's really brought care to millions of people that otherwise wouldn't have gotten it. The exciting thing is this area that this hospital serves is also training tomorrow's doctors and tomorrow's surgery residents. And so it's a bigger mission than just taking care of patients.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, CR, you've been going there for a number of years, and actually, we may get into it a little bit. But Martin's been going on also mission trips similar to this to Guatemala. And so, tell us a little bit about. This is the first time I think Martin went to Kenya, and so tell us how all this came about.
Yeah, I was. So I've been going to Guatemala since '93, and I've known CR his entire career. And he's been talking with me about his work. I share mine with him. And he's been asking if I would go. And I was really fortunate. He invited me to go, and I saw some pretty unique things. I feel very, very fortunate. I'm surprised it took me so long to go with you.
Well, I think now the onus is on me to go to Guatemala.
Yeah, we hope you do.
Now, one thing that really led to this, though, Clint, was last year when I was there with Andre, one of our other residents, we had 3 different little boys that had a condition called epispadias. And it's really beyond my skill set, and you get one shot to fix these. And it takes a very, very skilled surgeon who has done a lot of this and has seen a lot of this. And so I told my Kenyan colleagues, look, I don't think this is a good idea for me to fix this. And, of course, Wednesday rolls around, and I usually stalk the operating room, and I'm usually there before the anesthesia team, before anybody else is there, and I see one of these little boys roll back into the operating room with an IV in his arm. And I asked the anesthetist, hey, who's going to be the surgeon for this child? And he looked embarrassed, and he looked kind of shy, and he looked down at the ground, and he said, Dr. Powell, I think you're the surgeon. So I said, don't put him to sleep. And I texted Martin and I said, hey, there's a real desperate need here. And would you be willing to come? Of course, he's always willing to come, but the logistics are really complicated. And he said, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. And so thank you, Martin.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think this is a great example of how to do this correctly. We go on these trips and we see all these people in great need. And we have to really be very measured as to how we approach taking care of people in these other countries. It matters, and it matters as much as it matters for anyone here. And so it was really very thoughtful for you to do this. I've done this time and time again with my work in Guatemala. As a pediatric urologist, they bring in pediatric urology things I don't see often enough. And so I'll say, I don't think this is wise to do it now. I'm going to call in some people from Europe or somewhere else that do this more often. And it's just the right way to do it. And I think that people really respect you and want to kind of follow your lead in the country you're working in after you do it this way.
So it sounds like you're really welcomed and, from the community and the people there and the people you're helping and teach and everything like that.
Yeah, I felt it immediately. And it was great. People have been texting me ever since. CR, maybe you're telling them to text me, I don't know. But, but they're asking when I'm coming back, and it's really nice. And they really took everything we taught to heart. Yeah, it was really very special.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The minute I went to Kenya, my Kenyan colleagues, some of whom are still there, like Edward Mugalo and Sam Wambengi, who Martin got to meet on this trip as well. I've been in their homes. I've shared meals with them. They've offered to have us stay there instead of stay at the IU house. I really feel like they have adopted us as family in a very gracious way. And so it's really easy to make the decision to come back year after year after year when they're so kind and so generous with their time and their resources.
How much is it you guys are there just doing the surgeries versus you're there teaching the local surgeons some of the techniques, or is it a bit of both, or you're just kind of, you show up, they got surgeries lined up, and you're just getting through the surgeries?
I would say it's a combination of three things. It's them teaching us, which I certainly, every trip, I feel like I learn a lot. Us teaching their residents, them teaching our residents, and then occasionally I'll have some skills that they don't have, but they really have graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, and so they've learned this stuff, and they've learned to be very efficient. They may not have always some finesse or some polish that you might learn in the U.S., but they don't have the high-tech stuff, but I think they make up for it in resourcefulness.
Yeah, I'd say it's similar for me. Typically when I go, they want me to do the surgery for them initially. I say, you do it. And they say, no, you're here for a reason. So we do the surgery. And then subsequently they do it and I observe. And the reason that I go to Guatemala in the same location every year is the reason that CR does this as well, is then the same people see the same procedures over and over again. Not only they see them again, but they then realize you're coming back. And so if they get into trouble and a complication occurs, you can help them get out of it. And I think that increases their confidence. Them teaching us, I have a great example of this. In fact, I'm going to be doing another one in this coming week. 3 years ago, went to Guatemala, and one of the cases they brought in was a child with two penises and two bladders and two rectums. And they said, what would you like to do? And I said, I really have no idea. I've never seen this before. And the surgeon who I've now known for 25 years said, well, let me show you how to take care of the penis. I said, so you've done this before? Oh, yeah, we had a case 6 years ago. I said, this occurs 1 in every 15 million live births. And he goes, yeah, we had one 6 years ago. And so he basically showed me how to do the procedure. And it was amazing. And he goes, I'm just doing what you do when you show me how to do something else, like a bladder augmentation. And so really quite amazing. And we're actually doing our third one next week.
Wow.
So I've gained immensely from this and learned quite a bit. And I can apply that then when I'm here, not specifically to that case, but many of the procedures we do on a daily basis now have been out of our experience there.
For the listeners, can you give us just kind of a, What does your typical day look like there? What is the environment like? Just kind of give us your day-to-day tasks.
Sure. Well, the IU house is very well set up for visitors. It's about a mile from the hospital, so I like to get up and kind of go over what we're going to do that day just in my mind, and I try to keep records of everybody that we've operated on. So I may look for prior things that we've done in prior years, and then we get our team together. We go down there, and we start looking for the patients. And most of the patients have been staying in the ward for the past week or so. Because that's the easiest way. They don't have resources for hotel rooms, so the easiest way is to admit these patients, and we know where they are. They're here, and we figure out who's ready for surgery this particular day, and then we just try to get things going. It's in a lot of ways similar to what we do in the U.S., only we are completely dependent on their system. And I think one thing that I have learned over the years is sometimes we tend to get impatient as surgeons in the operating room, waiting for things to happen. And I think sometimes you can actually slow things down by trying to speed things up. I think sometimes you have to have respect for the way that people do things, and there is often wisdom in the way that they do things that you're not seeing as an outsider.
I second that. You really go at their own pace because there really is a reason for it.
I've heard you guys talk some about just some of the barriers there, whether it's either cultural, some of the urologic surgeries that happen, they need catheters or bags or, issues with supplies, or culturally having stuff like that. It makes you have to maybe think outside the box a little bit. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I've got a very exciting story about that. So I've been going to Kenya for more than 20 years now. And one problem we persistently have had is lack of ostomy supplies. And so what we do in that case, when a child or an adult needs a urinary diversion, either we don't do it and just deal with the consequences, or we do what's called a Mines 2, which is where we plug the tubes that connect the kidneys to the bladder, called ureters, into the sigmoid colon. And we make a little outpouching. That's the Mines 2 part of it. But this has got all kinds of problems. It can cause infection and cancers and things like that. And these patients have to be followed. And so the lack of ostomy supplies is going to be a financial problem I don't think we're going to be able to fix. Well, this year, Martin has been actually working on this problem in Guatemala, similarly, less resourced area. And I think he has come up with a solution where we have a reusable silicone ring that will fit onto the skin, held in place by kind of a pressure belt, and then it attaches to a reusable bag. And this is completely innovative, novel, exciting, and the cool thing about it is I think we can adopt it for use in Kenya, just like he has already adopted it for use in Guatemala. And so that really excites me. So lack of resources, it's a problem. But I'm always amazed how you can get around that sometimes with creativity and innovation.
Yeah, and I'd say, Clint, that oftentimes when you go down, certainly as I went down initially in the 90s, and then as I see new people come with me, they come up with the answers that we often have here to use. And it's really, you got to be careful, because trying to fit a square peg in a round hole really doesn't work. It actually creates huge disruptions and problems after you leave. And so part of the excitement of this work, of this space that we get the privilege of working in, is really using our executive functioning to figure out problems that you wouldn't have to think about here. Mm-hmm. And they end up being answers, which we then are using here now.
Yeah.
And they're actually simplifying life. It's really changed the landscape to a large degree in pediatric urology in the United States, what we're doing elsewhere. So it's basically just asking questions which we thought we had the answers to before, and realizing we didn't know everything. It's really very beneficial to everybody.
Can you share maybe another patient story that you have that was really impactful for you?
Sure. Well, I can think of one boy that we actually did have a problem. So he was born with this condition, exstrophy epispadias, and he was 20 years old. And this was, I know you probably remember Dave Daniels and Rudy, both you guys. They were the residents that I went down. This was more than 10 years ago. And this man, we'll call him Bernard, came to us, 20 years old, had surgery for this when he was a child. And he basically just had a little nubbin of his bladder in his belly area, his prepubic area. And it was just constantly leaking urine. And so he actually, the bus driver on his way to the hospital a few days prior to meeting us, actually stopped the bus and said, somebody has urinated on my bus. And he was really angry, and he was like, whoever it is, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, Bernard wasn't going to say anything, but Bernard knew it was him. And so the bus driver didn't figure it out, kept going. This guy gets to the hospital, and he's like, can you help us? And so Edward Magallo, my colleague, was like, can we help this man, And so what we did is we kind of cored that out, and we were really debating, what are we going to do for this man, because we don't have the ostomy supplies. We didn't have the solution that Martin has come up with yet, and we didn't think he would be appropriate for a Minds 2 diversion, because he's a young 20-year-old guy, and he has, hopefully 50, 60 years of life left ahead to develop a cancer, develop a kidney infection, and may not get help for that. And so we did what's called an Indiana pouch, which was pioneered, of course, here in Indiana University. And so we did this on this guy. And, 6 months later, he comes back to the hospital. They send me text messages. They're like, hey, he's doing good. They did an x-ray. He looked good. He was happy. And then nothing for 10 years, nothing. So I thought this man had died of something, sepsis, or lost his catheters, I don't know. And it really, and I remember Martin and I talked about this particular man quite a bit. And he said, CR, I've had this issue a lot in Guatemala, and I've just decided it's probably not a good idea to do these continent diversions, where somebody is going to depend on supplies like catheters, going to depend on regular care to make sure they're not getting kidney infections or things of that nature. And so I really thought we had harmed this guy. And then a few years ago, I was with two other of our residents, and Ruben and John, and I had to leave early because we had some family health emergency that I had to leave Kenya for, and I left those guys there in Kenya. And I guess it's a testimony to my Kenyan colleagues. They were like, look, we're happy to take care of these guys, and they wanted to stay. I gave them the option to come back with me. They stayed, and they wound up meeting this guy because this guy showed up to clinic, and nobody had seen him. Nobody had been able to get a hold of him. And so, what is it, like 14, 15 years later, here he is, and he's alive, thank goodness. So it has a happy ending, but it really underscores something that Martin and I have really struggled with, which is, do you really want to do complex reconstructive surgery in an environment where people may not follow up? And I don't know, that's a difficult question.
And so the hard part in going to, Kenya and Guatemala, I can't speak for other places necessarily, is that if you take a young child, especially a girl, and you put an opening on her skin that looks like a colostomy, the family, this won't do it. Their main concern is, how is this child ever going to socialize? And so the hard part is convincing them that this is really what they want. And I see it as a temporary solution, that it's going to be reversed later after they get older and their kidneys are healthy. And so what we did is we were able to convince one or two people early on, and then we have those people come back for the next trip, and they talk to the next families. And we now have over 76 families that have had this done. We have girls that have had children. We've had boys that they get married and have children. They bring their children to the clinic with them. They show the others. And so it's really like you're doing, CR. It's so important to go back to the same place over and over and over again. It's important so you can show them that you own your complications, that you really mean well, and that they can depend on you. So I really commend you, and I think it's the way to do things.
You are really passionate about this. It sounds like, just from hearing all your stories and everything so far. So I know you've talked about this a little bit, but how do you kind of bring back what you've learned and what you've taken, not only from, the surgical aspect, just like to meeting the people and, their families and the culture and everything? How do you bring that back to Indiana?
That's a good question. Obviously, we tell stories. We are hoping, I think Martin and I are of the same mind, that others will get excited about this and will say, could we come with you next time? It's why I take residents. I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's why you take residents and fellows as well to Guatemala. And so I think there are things that we learn over there, like Martin has alluded to, where, It's not a one-way exchange of knowledge. It's definitely two-way. But I think the other important aspect is it's a lot of friendships, and you develop deep friendships. You're facing the same challenges together, and I think that bonds people together in ways that you really can't duplicate without a real existential struggle. You're trying to save someone's life. You're trying to solve a problem that's gonna, ruin somebody. And when you win, it's a really special closeness with your Kenyan or Guatemalan colleagues. I think we bring it back to the U.S. by taking others, and we try to multiply what we're doing by getting other people excited and fired up.
Yeah, it really does build a sense of team. I would say that more than half my time in the operating room is talking with others about trips we've taken, patients we've seen, others that want to come. And CR, you should also mention what you've done and what I've done as well, is we've included people in these institutions we've gone to on papers that we've published. And I think that really does expand their opportunities and also shows people here how we can leverage what we learn from our professors and really make a bigger difference.
That's a good point.
You guys are probably been doing it certainly the longest in our department on these trips to these places that you go. How did you each get so interested in this?
Okay. Someone Mark Adams, asked me to go on a trip in '92 to Guatemala. I went, actually my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, went as well, and we got engaged there. So that left a big impression. And then it's interesting, I went, then after I got back from fellowship, went to Lithuania, Romania, India, and then my sister, who had lived in Guatemala for 3 years, called me up and, like only a sister can do, said, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? She goes, I like this medical tourism idea, Martin, but why don't you make a difference and go to the same place and really make a difference?
Wow.
Who says that to you other than someone you can't disown? So, so anyway, so she said we should really just make a commitment. And so starting in 2000, that's exclusively where we've gone. I've gone occasionally to various places, as with CR. And now that I'm moving on in my career and moving into my 60s, I think I'll go with him regularly since I don't have my 5 children at home anymore. But it's it really has been my family members telling me, listen, this is great. This is great. You have all this training, but are you really making a difference unless you really go and hammer at the same place? And I think that really matters. And I think that's what CR is doing.
I agree fully. Yeah, I got involved because it actually goes back to when I was in college. I was studying engineering at Purdue University and became a Christian in college. And that was not the direction I was heading in at the time, and decided after some close friends, and I got to know each other really well. And we were talking about this mission work, that medical mission work would be really exciting. And I read this book about Kenya, actually, by a neurosurgeon named Mel Cheatham called "Come Walk with Me," and I was blown away by this book. And sometimes you'll read a book, rarely in life, but it happens, that has a profound impact on your life and changes the whole trajectory of your life. And this was one of those books. And so I didn't change my major. I still got my degree in electrical engineering, but I took all the prerequisites for medical school, decided to go to medical school, and then wound up doing all that. And actually it was Charlie Kelly, the guy who was one of the 3 founding fathers of the empath program, that he and I were sitting in his office at the old Wishart Hospital here at Indiana University when I was a medical student. And he said, where do you want to go, CR? And I said, well, I don't know, Charlie, where do you suggest? Right away, he pulled out this big fat binder and he says, Kenya, this place called Tenwick. Well, it turns out Tenwick was the hospital that was featured in this book. And I thought, the writing's on the wall here. This is definitely where I need to go. So I spent 2 months there as a medical student. And I think more than anything, that cemented for me that this is what I needed to be doing. And honestly, it has given me more back than I've ever given to it. And I think the rich relationships, the experience, boy, I could go on and on. But that's what got me started. And then, of course, my family's been incredibly supportive. I think neither of us could do any of these trips, Martin, without our families behind us, making sure the lights stay on.
That's so true.
That's great. Those are both great stories. And, you guys go and you work hard while you're there, but tell us a little bit about some of the fun stuff that you get to do once some of that work is over.
Well, I tell you, this last year was probably one of the most remarkable years that I've had. Every year, I take our residents on a safari because the first time I did it with Rosalie Missouri, one of our other pediatric urology partners, we went on a safari. And so that kind of set a precedent, and so from that point on, all the other residents are like, so no one asks about it, but everybody is thinking it, are we going to go on a safari with Dr. Powell? And so we're kind of locked into it, and I like safaris. I'm not trying to pretend to be a martyr, but at the same time, I've done just about any kind of safari a guy can do, and so this year, I talked to my person who sets all those up for us, Netta, who Martin got to know. And I said, Netta, I want a special experience this year. And she's been hounding me to go to this one privately owned nature preserve. So it's owned by one rancher, one family, and it's 58,000 acres. And they have two companies that have set up camps within their land. And so they are cattle ranchers. So their primary job is to raise cattle. But the way Kenyan law works, you cannot kill the lions and the other things that are going to eat your cattle. You just have to let them kill your cattle. And so you move the cattle. So you're able to, put radio collars on the lions, and so you kind of know where they are. And then if you know the lions are in this one area, you move those cattle out of that area because apparently the lions will just kill and kill and kill. They won't just kill and eat. They'll just keep killing them. Wow. Anyway, all that to say, she made the most special experience I think I've ever had on a safari, and I'm thrilled that Martin got to experience that, and our resident Leo got to experience that. But that would be pretty hard to beat in the future.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And it really is nice after you work so hard to go and do something. It's kind of a nice way to decompress a little bit after some pretty intense surgery. To add one more thing to that, as years have gone by, just as here at IU, I spend half my time in the operating room talking to the nurses and the fellows and the residents about the trips you've gone on. I've then included some of the surgeons there on the trips you've gone on. So then while we're operating, we'll talk about, do you remember the time, that we caught the big fish in the Pacific? And I think that we're talking around and about the same thing. We're talking about building a network of people that want to be around each other and make a difference. And I think that having fun is part of that. It's not just the serious nature of taking care of people, because it's pretty damn intense.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Anything else you guys did? I saw some pictures on, I think you guys were going down a river on a kayak or something, or
This is pretty amazing. We were were in this game park, and we took these kayaks out, and I really still can't believe we did it. You paddled up to within about 5 feet of one of the 16 elephants that were drinking water at the side of the lake. It was
that was not my intent.
Had a hard
my
time
intent was to take
steering
pictures of you.
Yeah. How do you steer this thing?
oh gosh.
Yeah, no, I asked Joseph. I had my camera in my hand, so my paddle was across my lap, and Joseph kept paddling closer and closer. And I said, Joseph, he's Kenyan, so I assume he knows better than I, and he does. He knows these elephants, actually. They have names, and he knows who they are. But I said, Joseph, is this safe to go this close? Because we're not slowing. He's just kidding. I mean, we're going, 2-3 miles an hour, closer and closer and closer. And Martin and Leo are hanging back in their kayak, rightly so. And he just looks at me, and I look back, and he says, "Okay." And I was like, "What's that mean?"
I guess you're fine.
He was so close. I'm not kidding. The thing could have taken his trunk and touched him. It was really quite an amazing experience.
That's a little closer than I want to be to wild elephants.
That would have been a good photo to have.
We have some close to
pictures.
it.
Some good ones.
I feel really privileged in this position that I'm to be in a department with people like Clint Cary and the people that came before him that have supported me in doing this in a way in which it just works in seamlessly with my career. I just don't know if this would have happened anywhere else.
I would agree with that. I think this is a privilege, and it's amazing blessing to be in a place that values people's outside of work interests that dovetail with their work. So in other words, the department doesn't directly benefit from what Martin does or from what I do, but yet the department still supports us. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. I can't think of many places in the U.S. where I could do this, and be this supported. There's nowhere I could be this supported. They let the residents go. The department supports our travel. It's incredible. So I think the department is very supportive of global health, much more so than I think many other urology departments.
Awesome.
Well, I'll say I have had a small role in this. I mean, this was going on well before I was here. I mean, I obviously knew these things were happening when I was a resident and knew how important they were. And I mean, it was when in my short time as chair, I mean, this is an easy thing to keep going. So I've had minimal role, but I'm definitely happy to keep up the support for these exact experiences and stories. I think it speaks for itself.
We have some fun questions. What was your favorite thing you ate, or I don't know, anything like that about the trip?
Favorite or not favorite?
Well, both.
It was unique there in terms of
Well,
food.
ugali is unique, and so the ugali is a Kenyan kind of corn-based food. Sukuma wiki is probably one of my favorite things. It's a little like collard greens here in the U.S., and those are two of my favorite things to eat in Kenya. Samosas, which are really Indian, not necessarily Kenyan in origin. But the weirdest thing that I've eaten was not in Kenya. It was in Gabon. And I was with some other friends, and we were at a restaurant, actually. And it was on the menu, it said poulet. And, of course, in Gabon, they speak French. And so my friend, who is a pediatric urologist in Chicago, he was with us, and he goes, "Oh, I speak a little French. I think this is chicken. I'll have the poulet." But it wasn't quite poulet, and our friend who was with us, who is Gabonese, she said, I don't know that word. And so we asked the lady, and she goes, "Oh, you'll love it. And we're like, "Okay, sure, let's get it." Well, it turns out it was the word for silkworms. And these were big silkworms. They were about an inch long and about half an inch wide. And we had already done it. I mean, we ordered them, and she brings out a big plate of these things. And I was not that interested in eating them. The guy who ordered them actually did not eat them. And so me and another guy named Mike was our video guy, because we were making videos for surgical residents, African surgical residents, while we were there. So we would do the surgery, do a video of the surgery, and then leave them with the video. And so that guy ate probably 5 or 6 of those things, and I ate one, but I won't tell you the rest of the story. I won't eat another. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
All those things he's mentioned, I've had none of them.
You may have had ugali.
Maybe, without knowing it.
No, the ugali at when we were having dinner with Wambengi.
Oh, okay, right.
At Java House.
I remember that.
At the mall.
That was good.
The Rupa Mall. So it was and Kenya's a fun place. It's special to me.
Very unique.
Yeah.
And the flight's like what, 20 hours, something crazy?
It is. It's a long flight.
It was 15 hours coming back on one plane, and it's hard to get that flight because it's a direct flight from Nairobi to JFK, and so you can't, of course, get anything from Indianapolis. But normally, what I would do is go to Europe, and then from Europe to Nairobi, and so that's 2 8-hour flights. So this was amazing.
It was great. I mean, I fell asleep for the first 8 hours, and I woke up, and I realized I still had 8 hours.
Yeah, that was wild.
What's a good non-work related skill that you're good at? Could be random, something, hobby.
Well, I'm happy to answer that, but I keep talking.
You start, because I've got to think about one.
All right. So I have a new favorite. So I would have said wakeboarding and snowboarding about 4 or 5 years ago, but now I would say e-foiling, which is basically surfing, but with an electric motor on the back of the surfboard. And it's got a little wing under the water. So it's got about a 2-foot mast that sits under the water with a little wing that goes horizontal. And as you may have noticed, Indiana doesn't have a lot of oceans and not a lot of waves. And so surfing's out if you live in Indiana, unless you want to travel. And it doesn't have a lot of mountains. And so snowboarding is out unless you want to go to Perfect North Slopes, which has intermittent snow. And so e-foiling has taken that place for me. And I love it. You can
Never heard of that.
Yeah, you Google it.
You do this on the lake?
I do it on you can do it on any lake. Except the lake we have a house on, actually, because they have banned them. But you can do it at Eagle Creek Reservoir, and nobody's out on Eagle Creek Reservoir. I mean, it's no speedboats, nothing. So it is amazing and fun.
I need to see a video.
He has them.
I
And
gotta
they-
see
it's
this.
pretty
I have
impressive.
lots. I have lots.
Okay,
So-
that's really cool.
But that's probably my favorite new hobby. But my favorite old hobby is definitely running, which I do in Kenya, which is humiliating. Because even the third graders can
You
beat
want
me.
to know if I like to run, going to Eldoret, Kenya. Yeah, right.
I mean, the children. I've learned not to run around 7:30 a.m. because that's when the children go to school, and if they see you running, they start yelling "Mzungu." That's Swahili for foreigner, and then they chase you, and they don't stop. I mean, they keep going and
Turns
going.
out they're good runners.
Yeah, they're all good runners, and they're running backwards, and they're laughing and joking with each other, and you're humiliated.
Oh wow.
And so, and then the adults. What's worse is if the adults are running by, then they'll see the children doing this, and they'll just laugh. And so, but I have made friends that way too. I've been running because there's a way I always run when we go to Eldoret, and a lot of other people run that way too. And so I've met people running who will stop and talk to me. Of course, they're not out of breath, and they're having normal conversations, and I'm every third breath is a word. So the altitude is about 6,000 feet, so it's thinner air up
Yeah,
there.
it's up there.
But yeah, I guess I got a lot of hobbies.
You do have a lot of hobbies. Yeah, I'm trying to think which mine is that I like the most, but I just as a general thing, I like putting myself in uncomfortable situations. I really do. No, I think that's what mission work's about. I think that's about
That's
learning
true.
the foreign languages. When we had our Swahili lesson,
Yeah.
I wasn't that comfortable.
No, yeah.
And I think
With
I want to do that
Wycliffe.
e-foiling with you. That sounds like it'd be uncomfortable.
Well, we'll do it. We'll do it.
Martin's an interest. He interests me because I remember being at a dinner. Maybe it'd have been the. I'm going to mix up the name. The Pan African.
Oh yeah, the PAX.
Yeah.
PAX dinner. Yeah. With
one
Jack
of-
Barassa.
Yeah, he was in town. I think we were having dinner.
I wasn't at that one.
I can't. Okay, so it was a different dinner.
Okay.
And I remember you were sitting next to me, and we're at whatever downtown restaurant, and we're talking, and the waiter's coming by to order, take our order, and I order something, and Martin just says, "I'll have what he's having." And
Oh,
That's
yeah,
bold.
new philosophy.
yeah,
That's right.
and I was like, "How do you know you're gonna like it?" And he was like, "I don't. It doesn't. I just don't have time to think about these kind of things."
I don't make decisions. If you picked it, was probably good. That's right. This whole thing about limiting my choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Have a
say
good
you
memory.
make thousands of decisions a day, and it's just one you don't want to make. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
I think that's fair.
You're funny.
Funny story about Martin is when I was since we're telling Martin stories.
Okay.
So when I was a
This makes me
medical
uncomfortable.
and you're uncomfortable. This is great. You should be loving this. When I was a medical student, I was forced to go on the urology rotation. At the time, it was a 2-week rotation. The school has subsequently done away with this mandatory rotation, which is a real shame because it's the only reason that I'm in this seat here today. And I was doing the rotation. I actually really enjoyed it. And I remember you and I had coffee at the old Riley. Outside, they had those tables. And you took time to have coffee with a medical student. You didn't know me from Adam. And I think I had just been on the rotation for like a short time because it was just a 2-week rotation. I'm sure it wasn't all pediatric. I'm sure just a little bit was. And I was telling him, what my hopes were, with medical school, because of course he's asking very introspective questions. What do you want to do? What are you interested in? And it wasn't a judgment. It was just I want to get to know you, as a student. And so I said, well, I really want to do mission work. And, little did I know that he had been doing this for years. And so he knew quite a bit about it. And, he said, you might want to think about urology, if this is really what you want to do. And so I looked into it. He talked to me a little more about it. And I thought, wow, this is not something I saw coming. I think, once again, like that book, that changed the trajectory of my life and my career, I think that conversation probably made me look toward urology for the first time ever. I didn't do the rotation thinking I'm hoping to do urology. It wasn't even on my radar. I wanted to do emergency medicine because I thought that sounded adventurous, which was foolish, of course. Now we're trying to avoid the emergency room whenever we can. But yeah, so I think to me that underscores how much impact we can have as faculty members when we take time to meet with a medical student. And you do that. You always do that. You still do that.
Well, you're very kind. You both do as well. And yeah, I think that's what makes this place great. It really does. There's so many reasons I feel so lucky to have been here now for 36 years. And I think it's being around a team of people that everyone's reaching higher for something in a good way. And everyone, as a result of feeling confident in doing that, is complimentary towards everybody else. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I appreciate you guys. All these stories were great. The experiences, hearing both the work and non-work related times you guys had. I think it's important for our department. Obviously, you guys are very passionate about it, and I think it'll be good to share this story with all of our listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Inside Urology. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might like an inside look at the world of urology. And stay tuned as we keep cutting to the chase.